Welcome back to Movies TV Mad and Monday's edition of the Movies TV Mad Daily. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad and on Instagram at Movies TV Mad 555. So today we will not be talking about Black Widow and its huge box office. Not interested. I will not be talking about the MCU and how amazing and perfect it is with no flaws. I am not interested in the MCU. What I am interested in is the DCEU and its upcoming movie, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, just under a month away. And Collider have got a really good article about the opening sequence of James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. And this is a sequence I've seen and delighted in. It's absolutely fantastic, groundbreaking. So let's read the article. The Suicide Squad opens with a giant Saving Private Ryan inspired beach battle. Here are the details. It really is sensational. James Gunn made a war movie that also includes King Shark by Mini Mancuso of Collider. When Collider visited the Atlanta set of The Suicide Squad, one thing the trailers haven't quite driven home yet became very clear. James Gunn is making a war movie in order to fully live up to the film's Platoon-esque inspirations. Gunn and production designer Beth Mickle strive to construct and use as many practical sets as possible. An intentional departure from the director's largely green screen work on Guardians of the Galaxy. While we can't quite speak to the finished product just yet, I can tell you I definitely did step right off the Pinewood Studio backlot into the surrounding jungles of Corto Maltese, which led to the jaw-droppingly large set built to represent Jotunheim. More on that right here. The 3-ish football field's worth of debris and twisted metal suggested that whatever just had been filmed there, it involved blowing the place to absolute shit, as did the fully overturned Jeep sitting in the corner. That practical level of destruction was practically integral to the Suicide Squad's chaotic opening scene. Mickle and producer Peter Safran told Roundtable of journalists, here's what Safran said. The opener of our movie, it's basically Saving Private Ryan. It's our team landing on a beach in a big battle, and there's got to be water. There's got to be sand, a pond. It's supposed to take place on Corto Maltese, so we built a beach on the backlot here. That's 260 feet across. A giant tank, wave machines, thousands of trees. This is what Beth and her team built. And we shot there for the first 10 days of shooting, where it was Saving Private Ryan at night on this beach. Explosions and helicopters and the whole thing. You could have done it in a pure blue screen environment, frankly, but it just feels so real for the actors to be running through the sand, hiding behind big boulders, swimming in from a tank into the beach. All that stuff, you feel it when you see it. It looks absolutely extraordinary. Mickle emphasised that the Suicide Squad practical sets were a result of a close collaboration with Gunn, who wanted to experiment in physical ways CGI won't allow. It's a very naturalistic film, and it's a war film, but it feels like Platoon and Saving Private Ryan and Black Hawk Down, where you're literally in the boat with them, arriving on the beach with bullets whizzing past you and running through the sand, with bullets hitting the sand and jungle leaves hitting your face as they race through. That's where the limitations of CGI would really do come into play, because you just don't get that same sort of interaction with the sand flying back and hitting people. That's a good point. And then coming up from the water. And I really think you can tell when it's not physically there. Of course you can. It doesn't matter how good the CGI is, you know straight off it's CGI. I want us to go back to doing things within the camera. I don't care how expensive it is. You know, you guys at Disney and Warner Brothers make enough fucking money to do the best thing for the movie and visually. This is why no one's made Superman fly as awesomely as Dick Donner did. Be on the lookout for more dispatches. Well, yeah, just look, it's such a fantastic scene. I don't want to give spoilers away for it, but when you see this opening scene on the beach, and, you know, it is like Saving Private Ryan and Platoon, especially Black Hawk Down. This is absolutely a war movie. This is Dirty Dozen. This is basically every war movie you've ever seen, but with the James Gunn touch to it and the DCEU touch to it. There's some characters we already know. We know they're going, this literally, kind of interestingly enough, I think James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is more of a suicide mission than the first movie. Because this is what they are. They're going on suicide missions. There are kind of armies and, you know, commandos out there that literally in the real world go on suicide missions for the greater good. And this is what the Suicide Squad is all about. A lot of those John Ostrander comics do that, where there's this new team, they go out there, they die, and then Waller has to build a brand new team. The Suicide Squad doesn't always consist of totally the same team. It's in the fucking name. You know, the name's on the door. They're called the Suicide Squad. This is the film I've been waiting for a very, very long time. I don't give two flying fucks about Black Widow, and the truth is, if you MCU shills were honest, you don't give a shit about Black Widow either. I've heard a lot of things, that James Gunn's The Suicide Squad will fail, that it will make less money than Black Widow. I didn't want to talk about Black Widow. I said on the inception of this video we wouldn't talk about it. But let's talk about the huge box office, because now they're talking about the actual theatrical box office and what they made on Disney+. Of course, you've charged $30 to every single person who wants to watch this film. Of course you're going to make loads of fucking money on it. You have ripped off your audience, your customer, and you're fucking bragging about the positive consequences of that. So, oh yeah, it's making a lot of money. Initially. Opening weekend, of course it is. But you wait and see the drop-off next week. Because this film, because I've seen it and most of you have seen it, has got no rewatchability whatsoever. Once you've seen it, you've seen it. Now there may be a reality where MCU shills go and rewatch it purposely to bump up the money it's making, and maybe it will make that money. But here's the thing. Once you've paid for it once, you can rewatch it on Disney+. Why would you go to the movie theatre to go and see it again? Now, if this was a classic MCU Marvel movie, of course you would. You'd rather see it on the big screen again and again. But this is not a classic Marvel movie. Now, from what I've seen from James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, and I have seen a 90-minute test screening, this is a classic, this is rewatchable, this is a great movie. This is really James Gunn's life's work. You know, he's a really, really huge Suicide Squad fan. He wanted to make this movie from his point of view, which he's pointed out many a times. I'm very interested. Now, I made a video last week about the TV spot that gave reactions, and I was kind of suspicious why people weren't talking more about it. It seems to me that many journalists haven't even seen this film. Or if they have, they're not saying they've seen it. So that's interesting. I think there's many spoilers in this film. So this is why you're not hearing too much about this film. We've heard more spoilers about the Flash movie than we had about James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. It's clear this film has a lot of spoilers. He doesn't want people to know who die and who don't, if anyone actually survives this movie. So that's kind of an interesting thing as well, isn't it? So I think, for example, if we do see Superman fighting Bloodsport, that's something they wouldn't want us to see. That's unlikely, by the way, but as a Superman fan, I must hold out hope for that. And so, yes, a very exciting opening war sequence in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. I can't wait to see the final theatrical version of this. It is going to be successful. It is going to be a hit. And just because you don't want it to be a hit doesn't mean it isn't going to be a hit. James Gunn's Peacemaker confirms Eastbound and Down director for Peacemaker. So yes, James Gunn confirms Eastbound and Down director for Peacemaker. James Gunn confirms Eastbound and Down and Righteous Gemstones director Jody Hill helmed at least one episode of HBO Max's streaming show Peacemaker by Dan Zinski of Screen Rant. James Gunn confirms an Eastbound and Down director for his Peacemaker show. John Cena plays the DC anti-hero Peacemaker in Gunn's The Suicide Squad and will reprise the character in an upcoming HBO Max streaming show, also created by Gunn. A vigilante bent on bringing peace to humanity at any cost. Peacemaker first appeared in the pages of DC Comics in 1988, after being acquired from the defunct Charlton Comics Company. The character would later make an appearance in Watchmen before joining the Suicide Squad. Cena's version of the character for the Suicide Squad is described as a sort of anti-Captain America, and Cena himself has called the character a loud, obnoxious, bro-eyed douchebag. Indeed, Peacemaker, the streaming show, will reportedly explore how the character came to be a douchebag, and in Cena's own words will explain why he sucks. Gunn himself wrote 8 episodes of the upcoming streaming show about the superhero who sucks and will direct 5 of them. On Twitter, Gunn just confirmed the identity of one more Peacemaker director, telling fans that Jody Hill took the reins for at least 1 episode. Gunn also told a fun anecdote about Hill's time on the set, relating how the director mistakenly called the show's main character Peacemaster on more than one occasion. Hill is perhaps a big fan of the 1980s cult film The Beastmaster. The error amused everyone enough that patches were made in commemoration to see Gunn's tweet in the space below. One of our directors, Jody Hill, accidentally called Peacemaker Peacemaster a couple of times, and it stuck. So yeah, here are the patches. Really cool, really funny. That's brilliant, isn't it? Peacemaster director Hill is a veteran of TV with many writing and producing credits. As a director, he helmed 16 episodes of Eastbound and Down, the HBO series starring Danny McBride as a baseball pitcher with an ego almost as reunited with McBride to direct episodes of both Vice Principals and The Righteous Gemstones. He also directed the 2009 Seth Rogen movie Observe and Report, as well as the 2018 Josh Brolin film The Legacy of White-tailed Deer Hunter. Thinking about the main character of Eastbound and Down, an enigmatic baseball player with all sorts of personal issues, it's easy to see why Gunn would tap Hill to direct some of Peacemaker. It's clear Cena's character is being explored as an example of toxic masculinity, and it's hard to think of a more toxic male character in recent television history. The Eastbound Down, Kenny Powers. The old HBO show was, of course, righteous comedy about an enigmatic, and Peacemaker figures to boast a similar outrageous tone. No premiere date has yet been announced for Peacemaker, but is expected to arrive in January 2022. Toxic masculinity. You can keep on giving us examples of toxic masculinity. Listen, you can just look at me as an example of toxic masculinity. What is actually a toxic male? A passionate alpha male who loves having sex with beautiful women with beautiful bodies. That's who I am. I like to drink beer, I like to take drugs, I like to smoke cigarettes. Sue me. So at the end of the day, Hollywood and the extreme left can keep on trying to weaponize alpha males, and that's fine, and I'll watch this and I'll find it entertaining, and that's great, but I couldn't give a fucking shit, because at the end of the day, most men are alpha males. Now, who entertains you the most? Me, an alpha male, or some beta male who wants to say some kind of the right thing all the time? This is where we are now. It's very unfortunate, but I am looking forward to James Gunn's Peacemaker and James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. I think they'll be great. It is unfortunate that the extreme left have taken over the entertainment industry, but we are where we are. I still think it's going to be great. The DCEU MCU thing, the rivalry, is always worth exploring and trying to figure out what's the better franchise. Is it on popularity? Because probably the MCU would win. Is it on box office? Well, since the first Avengers, if we're judging box office, you have to say the MCU are the champions as well. But that's not how I judge my movies. You see, they've always had, the fans and the consumer and the media have always given the MCU a long leash to hang itself with, in a way. It's the darling of the public, it's the bestest thing ever. But when I look at the films, and I've said this many times before, there's very few actually good individual Marvel movies. So you would say that Iron Man is a fine movie. Iron Man 2 is a terrible movie. The Incredible Hulk is a really, really good movie. The First Avenger is a really, really good individual movie. Captain America 2 is a sensational movie, a really good movie. that's when they become bland and kind of uncinematic and they're just part of a jigsaw puzzle, really, until you get to Infinity War, which is a really good film, whether you know the franchise or followed the franchise or not. What it sets to do is connect everything together and have characters cross over who have never crossed over before. So that's really good. Now, when we look at the DCEU, and it's something I want to talk about as well, because with me just earlier talking about James Gunn's The Suicide Squad's opening sequence, it's a visually stunning sequence, and one thing that the DCEU have over the MCU is visual. Visually, it's far superior. Most of the DCEU look like comic book movies should be adapted visually. You could say that for the Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice, even to a lesser extent the Suicide Squad movie. Definitely Wonder Woman, that's a visually stunning movie. Zack Snyder's Justice League, James Wan's Aquaman, they're all visually stunning movies. And when you look at the MCU, they are visually bland. Apart from Guardians of the Galaxy, which is pretty cool, and there are a couple of movies there you could say the same thing about, but mainly the DCEU is visually superior. And this theme will continue with James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. This is something extremely special. You know, James Gunn isn't just a really good director in terms of characters and character development and, you know, gags and all of that. There's a lot more to him. Visually, he's a really good director as well. But now we look individually at the DCEU compared to the MCU movies. So, Man of Steel for me is a really, really great individual movie. So is BVS. So is Suicide Squad, so is Wonder Woman, so is Zack Snyder's Justice League, so is Aquaman. Those movies are the best that the DCEU has to offer. And for me, they're the best, some of the best comic book movies, CBMs, I've ever seen. They're really, really good. You can argue about the MCU as a franchise and a success story, but I think in 30 years' time, very few people will be rewatching these movies because they're going to be dated. You see, the MCU is a fashion construct. That's what it is. It's a fashion construct. The DCEU isn't fashionable, but it has its lovers. And if you're a comic book purist in terms of its visual elements, you will be re-watching Man of Steel, BVS, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, Aquaman. James Wan did a great job visually with Aquaman, as well as everything else great he did with the movie. So for me personally, because I'm biased and I'm a DC fan, I think that the DCEU has superior movies, but we've discussed this before. You know, the MCU is a superior franchise, but what's better? Having better movies or having a better franchise? Comment down below and let me know what you think about that. Why do I think that the Suicide Squad will destroy Black Widow in the box office? Now, obviously, in terms of all-round money, Disney are cheating again with this Premier Access, $30 a view. Now, all right, $30 to purchase the movie, should I say. That bumps their money up a little bit. Now, also, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is R-rated. But, listen to me, just listen to me for a minute. Joker was R-rated and it made over $1 billion. Now, did it make over $1 billion because it was a great movie or because people told you not to go and see it? Maybe a bit of both. This film has the potential to make a hell of a lot of money. Now, they're talking about Black Widow finishing off at 800 million, and maybe she will. I don't know. But what I am predicting with Black Widow, and as I said earlier, is the film will have a big drop-off next week because it has no rewatchability. It's a Marvel movie. Of course it's got a huge opening. Of course people want to go back. They're hungry to go to the movie theatre and see these movies. But there's no reason for people to rewatch this movie because people are saying it's the best thing ever, like they say about all MCU movies, but the truth is, it's not the fucking best thing ever. You know it, and I know it. We need to stop lying. Nobody, apart from one critic, with the first reactions to the film, have been honest about this film. It's not a bad film, it's not a great film, it's a middling, dull movie. It's as simple as that. And there are issues with its CGI and VFX as well, as we already know. They spent $200 million on that movie. There can be no pretending about this film. This film is a disappointment because our character, played by Scarlett Johansson, should have had an R-rated trilogy. It's disappointing for many, many reasons. Now, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is a different kettle of fish. This, of course, also is a kind of sequel. They're saying it's not a sequel, but it's got 4 fucking characters from the original movie. You bet your bottom dollar people, the public, are going to judge this as a sequel. It's got Harley Quinn. It's got, I can't even remember the characters' names now. It's got Rick Flag. It's got Captain Boomerang. It's got Viola Davis's Amanda Waller. You know, people are going to be hungry to see it because it's a sequel to the first movie. The first movie made nearly $800 million. It's James Gunn. It's the first DCEU movie we've seen since the bland and uninteresting Wonder Woman 84. And one thing's for sure here, and as I said before, DC movies can no longer fail. Now, I suppose they can still fail pre-Flashpoint. If Flash fails, or after Flashpoint, then everything's fucking dead, and I don't know what the studio would do. And it'll be interesting to see what David Zaslav and Warner Discovery would do once the company becomes that. But for now, I believe James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is a guaranteed hit. Now, there's been some accusations of bad marketing. I don't agree. I think the posters have been great, the trailers have been great, the TV spots have been great. I don't know what else you want them to do. You know, when you're seeing articles, you know, they were allowed to go on the set. That report I read you was because the studio and director allowed them to go on the set. That's part of the fucking marketing. And not every film allows you to do that. That's part of the marketing. So I feel the marketing's been great. I'm excited about this movie. Now listen, the MCU has automatically has people running to it. Now I don't know exactly what this film's going to make. I think it's going to trounce Black Widow. I obviously want it, being a DC fan, to trounce Black Widow. I think this is going to be a great movie, and I think people will go and watch it. Now, how many people will go and see it? And is the R rating a problem? I spoke pre-Joker that basically they let anyone go and see these R-rated movies. You don't think so? Go and try and watch it if you're under 18 or under 21 or whatever the R rating age is, right? Of course, if you look like a 2-year-old, they're not going to let you in. But mostly, you will fucking get away with it. Basically, if an adult goes and buys the tickets for you, you can go and see it. So, there are no limitations. Is there an interest for James Gunn's The Suicide Squad? Yes. Millions of people have seen the trailers. I think the only kind of recent trailers that have beaten that is The Witcher Season 2, and The Witcher is huge as well. So, people want to see James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, and I'm really excited for it. Now, I don't know what the critics are going to say. I don't know what the finished article of this film is. I've only seen a 90-minute test screening, but I'm confident about what James is doing. I think it was a great move by Walter Hamada. This film has to be a hit, though, because people want to come after DC and the current leadership of Warner Brothers Pictures, so this film can't fail for the studio or the director. And finally today, I want to talk about my favourite sequence from Superman the movie. Don't go away. Listen to what I have to say. Now, when Lois Lane dies in Superman the movie, Christopher Reeve delivers a wonderful performance as Superman, screaming to the heavens, while his Earth father and biological father are telling him why he can't break the rules. Echoes, because they're both dead. You are forbidden to interfere with human history. But Superman ignores this. Now, in the Star Wars prequels, Yoda's always going on about accepting death, about, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. So the question I'm asking on today's Movies TV Mad Daily, was Superman right to break these rules, or should he have accepted Lois's death? You see, in Anakin's case, he was having nightmares that Padme was going to die, and Yoda was saying, you've got to let whatever happens to her happens. You've just got to accept it. Now, it's different for Superman. From the moment this character was created, this character does not accept his own failure. He does not accept people dying. Anyone. But let's not forget, this is Lois Lane, the woman he's recently met and fallen in love with. There's no way he's going to accept this. He feels it's his failure to get there on time. So he takes it as a personal failure. So he doesn't know if he can bring her back. Let's be clear. He knows he has abilities and speed and power, but it's his anger and his frustration that lead him to save her life. And you can see it. The look on Reeves' face is sensational. Now, the question I'm asking, of course, did he make the right decision, or should he accepted her death? Well, listen, this is the thing with Superman. Anyone who reads Superman will tell you the same thing. Superman does not accept death. He doesn't want anyone to be hurt. He can't. You saw it in Smallville. He always blamed himself for the meteor shower. He always wants to do the right thing. And here's the thing. He was because he made the promise to Miss Tessmacher to save her mother. He was so far away from Lois, he couldn't save her life. So he feels like he should be able to save everyone. Of course, nobody can. And those lessons were taught to Clark in Smallville, in the Smallville TV show. But in this iteration, he decides, I am not accepting her death. She's an innocent person. She doesn't deserve this. I failed her. I'm going to put right what I got wrong. So I suppose it's a morally grey area. Should he be breaking human history? Should he be teaching humanity, us, that any rule could be broken so he can catch us when we fall? It's a very, very deep question. But Superman has all these abilities, and you can bet your bottom dollar he's not going to be asking himself those questions. These are questions asked of the character in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. But in this film it said, listen, these are stupid rules. If I can save a life, why shouldn't I? Now, if we were living in the modern era with different writers, this was Tom Mankiewicz and this was Dick Donner, of course, and they had a different mentality. But, I mean, in the sequel, you could have looked at the damage of what Superman did. So, for example, he went back in time, in a way. So it's a kind of flashpoint scenario. So we could have seen the consequences to that in Superman 2. They decided not to do that, and we don't know what Dick Donner and Tom would have done. Maybe they would have touched upon that. That would have been really, really cool. But of course, we always knew that Zod and his two cohorts were coming to Earth for Superman 2. It had been set up in Superman 1. For me, I was always fine. There were questions. Obviously, no one could go back in time and do that. But this is Superman. This is fiction. This is fantasy. Nobody wants to see Lois Lane die. I personally think Superman did the right thing, but what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. So that's it for Monday's edition of not the DCEU Daily, although I might as well call it that, of the Movies TV Mad Daily. You can comment down below. Follow me on Twitter, @MoviesTVMad, on Instagram, @MoviesTVMad555. Yes, the build-up to the Suicide Squad is very exciting, and let's not forget it's not just the Suicide Squad. Next year, we have the Batman, we have Aquaman, we have Black Adam, we have the Flash movie in 2023, we have the Superman movie, and Shazam! Fury of the Gods, and that's just the beginning. And also in 2022, we have Green Lantern Corps, we have Peacemaker, and we have Gotham PD over on HBO Max. It's a very, very exciting time to be a DC fan. Take 2 syringes and inject it all in my veins. Until the next video, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.